What is good, everyone, and welcome back to another NCAA WeSportin podcast video. And today we're going to be discussing the Big East. Now, this is a very big conference, an amazing conference. Just all the conferences are, but this one's a little specific as we have one of our hosts, Mr. Drew Weston, attends a Big East school in Butler University, and we're going to have Drew also talking about the Bulldogs season and how he feels about it, just like how we had Tim discuss his Purdue Boilermakers season in the Big Ten episode. So right now, like I said, guys, we're going to be discussing the Big East. And now the Big East has a lot of stacked teams like with Villanova, Creighton, maybe Xavier as well.
UConn's pretty good.
Yeah, UConn's also doing pretty good, sitting at a 14-6 record right now, which is pretty good for them. So let's dive right into it. As we're sitting at I'm going to assume the 1 seed. I'm going to assume right now it is the Villanova.
Yeah. Okay. So Villanova is the regular season Big East champion, and they are heading into the Big East tournament with the 1 seed. Creighton is sitting at the number 2 seed, and they have buys as a lot of other teams play Wednesday. That is when the Big East tournament starts. The teams that play on Wednesday are Marquette takes on Georgetown at 3:00 Eastern time. Butler takes on Xavier at 6:00 Eastern time, and DePaul takes on Providence at 9:00 Eastern time.
Yeah.
So those are the matchups on Wednesday.
Yeah. So like Drew said, like he just said, now those are the matchups that we have coming into the Big East tournament, and which is going to be an amazing tournament. And it'll be a fun one to watch as well. But now we're going to be kind of sitting here and we're going to figure out who's the winner. We're going to find out, the winner who we assume is going to win. We're going to see a little dark horse team that could come up and take it. And, we're going to have our, like we did last video, the overachieving, the underachieving, and the team that kind of just stuck in the middle this year. So I guess, and I know Tim likes starting off with it, the underachievers. Tim, who is our underachievers of the Big East?
It's a little bit interesting to say, but if I had to go with a true underachiever for this one, I would think Seton Hall. I think Seton Hall had some promise to going into this year. They've had some good runs in tournaments past year. But this year they've struggled a little bit. They're really on the bubble here. Right now they're a first 4 out team, and they're trying to work their way into a play-in spot, but they've had a major skid. They've played themselves out of a tournament spot, losing 4 straight, and they have a game up against St. John's here coming up. And if they lose that one, they've lost twice in a row to St. John's because they're playing them back-to-back, both games at home, I believe, as well.
Well, the Big East tournament is I believe it's in Madison Square Garden, so in New York City. So it's really a neutral site game.
Yeah, so they'll be playing the neutral site for the tournament, but they've been struggling as of lately, so they're not going in the right direction heading towards the tournament.
Nice.
So right now I'd say they're my biggest underachiever when it comes to past success coming into this season.
Mm-hmm. You know what, Tim? I agree with you on that one, although they're not my pick. More on that later. Seton Hall. The thing about Seton Hall is, like you said, they started the year hot, but they've really hit a skid, and they've essentially played themselves out of the tournament. And if they lose to St. John's, I think that'll essentially bury them. So they really need to show up against them. But they're not my underachievers. My underachievers in the Big East tournament are the Providence Friars. And Providence came in. They were supposed to be really good. They had guys like David Duke, Nate Watson that were supposed to show up, and they were really supposed to be a powerhouse around like where UConn's supposed to be. That was certainly not the case. They're sitting at 13-12, and they've really played themselves out of the tournament. And, they're really a part of the rest of the field. They're sub 500 in Big East play. And from their expectations at the start of the season, Providence has not lived up to standards at all. So they're my underachiever for the year.
Yeah. All right. Well, you guys have both good, takes on that. I was picking, Tim explained it for me. I believe, Tim, you went with you said Seton Hall. I was going to say as well, Seton Hall probably. I remember Seton Hall having an amazing, startup at the beginning of the year, and they were having an amazing couple of games, and they kind of just fell off of the board at the midway through the season. So that was going to be my underachievers for that. So now let's look at overachievers, and I know that there is one team I think we all can agree with, but I want to see what you guys are going to say as well. But overachievers, let's have Drew start out this one. Overachievers in the Big East.
My overachievers in the Big East, it's very simple. the St. John's Red Storm. That team has certainly outplayed any expectations, and especially coming down the stretch, they have been red hot, especially a stretch from mid-January to early February where they won 6 straight, including a win against UConn, including a win against Villanova, including a win against Providence. And that really where they caught fire. Now, they fell off, lost 2, but now they're coming into the Big East tournament with 2 wins against Providence and Seton Hall. So that's a sweep of Providence. And now they play Seton Hall for a 3rd time in the Big East tournament, like we mentioned previously. And Seton Hall has been a team that's on decline. St. John's has been a team on the ascent. And quite frankly, if St. John's keeps winning, they will play their way into the dance. They will play their way into the tournament. And now they're in the next 4 out. They were not there at all. You simply cannot ignore this team right now in terms of March Madness. You can't ignore them, especially if they do what they've been doing and just keep winning.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point right there. And I want to say mine, who I think, and this is going to come to a surprise, but I'm going to just be completely honest. I'm going to say Creighton, big overachiever as well. I think Creighton overachieved a little bit more than I think we've all seen. That's just me personally. I mean, you guys can disagree with me and agree to disagree, but I mean, just looking at it like this, Creighton, I mean, the year before I know was not, as good as of a team. I know that Villanova obviously runs the Big East. I'm going to just be quite honest. I think we all can agree with that. Villanova runs the Big East. But it also, I think, comes down to also Creighton has been that, kind of that, underdog behind them. They're the team that I think gets overlooked due to the fact that, they're in that conference with Villanova. I mean, Creighton came in this year. They beat teams like, Seton Hall. They lost by 1 to Kansas. I mean, they win a lot of these close battle games against these top 25 teams in the country. And I could really see Creighton making a run at, winning the Big East, but also making a run and maybe going to the Final Four or the Sweet 16. So I really liked Creighton this year. They did really well, and I can't wait to see Creighton succeed.
See, Tim, before you step in here and give your pick, I do not agree with you, Nico. For overachiever, I do not agree with you at all. Because Creighton was a team that we expected to be good, and they're right around where they started the season. They started the season ranked 11th in the AP poll. They're sitting right now at 17. We expected them to be good. We expected them to be at the top of the Big East.
Yeah.
A team that's overachieving has outplayed their expectations.
Well, I know.
Frankly, for Creighton, they're right around where we expect them to be. They're projected to be a 5 seed right now. Sure, they can win the Big East tournament. And yes, they're a talented team, but in my opinion, the gap between Villanova and Creighton in the Big East tournament was leveled when guard Colin Gillespie, first team All Big East, was injured, lost for the year for Villanova. So no disrespect to Creighton. I actually think they've become the favorites in the Big East, not by much, but favorites. I just don't think that they're an overachieving team.
Well, if you can let me explain that. When I say that Creighton to me is overachieved, I mean that for 2 reasons. One, of past success in, the Big, East, as well as being, kind of manhandled by, Villanova almost every year. But just also the fact that, I can see that that they could possibly win the Big East. And I'm going to pick them to win the Big East as well. I just personally like their chances. I like their odds. And I'm not saying you're right. They were ranked number 11 in the country at the beginning of the season. They were ranked number 11, which is good. And have they underperformed a little bit to that? Yeah, they have. They're now at 17. But I'm saying for a team that has been overlooked due to Villanova being there, I like their chances, and I would rather have them win the Big East than have Villanova win the Big East, and that's just me personally.
All right.
Yeah.
Tim,
I definitely get what you mean in that sense. I think what you're more thinking of is like in the past you see Creighton as a program, not as a powerhouse program in the Big East, like you see Villanova. Now, yes, I absolutely also agree.
Well, another thing is Creighton's a relatively new addition to the Big East. They spent a lot. I forget what conference they were in the past, but they have not spent much time here. So
And that's the thing. And Drew, to your point as well, they absolutely started off the season with some big expectations. And have they met them relatively evenly? Yeah, I think so. So I'm not sure if I would really call them an overachiever or underachiever. But my pick for the overachievers this year in the Big East, just to change it up a little bit from you guys, I actually think UConn. UConn, especially with the prospect of star sophomore James Bouknight coming off of a surgery. He went down with an elbow injury and he had to go out for a couple of games to get surgery. A lot of times you go down for a surgery mid-year, you can be done for the year, you can come back and kind of be a shell of your former self. Mm-hmm. But he came back late February and he's picked up right where he left off. He's averaging 20 points per game in his last 6 games since returning, not showing much sign of rust. And since then, they've won their last 4 games heading into the tournament. So they're one of those teams that are hitting their stride at the right time. Mm-hmm. So for me, I'd say they're my pick for an overachiever. Do I think they're like the biggest overachiever? Not necessarily, because yeah, UConn does have a bit of a history of kind of actually sitting right where they are right about now, that 9 seed. Because I believe UConn was a 9 seed when they made that run in the tournament and won the national championship, right?
With Shabazz Napier, yes.
Yeah, so this is a bit of a familiar place for them, but I think for this team and due to some of the things that happened in the mid-season, I think that these UConn Huskies are a little bit of an overachiever team for me.
And I agree.
I agree. I agree with that because a couple games ago, like you said, they've hit their stride at the right time, and they were around a 12, a 13 seed. Well, now they've kept winning and they played their way into a single-digit seed. So as far as
much different playing in for the tournament there. So that's a huge difference for them.
Now, pretty much no matter really what happens in the Big East tournament, the UConn Huskies should be in the dance.
Yeah.
So
those last couple of games have at least solidified themselves. No matter how much they could drop if they have a bad performance in the tournament, they still have solidified themselves as a tournament bid. So I think that's huge for them.
And I mean, UConn had that big win again against USC at the beginning of the year, or around the beginning of the year, where they beat USC 61-58. And I mean, that was a big win for them as well. I mean, they weren't even ranked going up against the USC team who was 24th in the country, and UConn wasn't even ranked. So I mean, yeah, Tim, I agree with you on that. So now let's go on to the final topic of who is going to take the Big East tournament. Who will take it? We're gonna assume our guesses as well, but then we're gonna see who the dark horse is of winning it. So let's give our predictions of who's gonna win the whole damn thing. Drew, you start off first. Who's gonna win the Big East?
All right, I'll start it off. I'll be pretty brief.
I'm waiting for it.
I have a realistic pick, and then there's my dark horse.
Please say it. I'm daring you to say it.
Okay, let me say my realistic pick first. My realistic pick is the Creighton Blue Jays. Creighton, and I discussed this earlier. It would be Villanova because Villanova has some dogs. James Robinson Earl, first team All Big East unanimous pick. Jermaine Samuels, All Big East honorable mention, and Gillespie. But Gillespie was the cog that really made it all work. And now that he's down, I think the Creighton Blue Jays have enough talent, especially with just getting their head coach back because he was suspended for a bit of time. There are dogs all around this Blue Jay team. Marcus Zagorowski is an amazing player. Damian Jefferson, he's really good. Denzel Mahoney, he's all good. These are all guys that have Big East honors. Mitch Ballock is a 3-point sharpshooter. There are dogs all around this team. So my realistic pick is Creighton. However,
here we go.
Watch out for the Butler Bulldogs.
Bulldogs.
They have a shot to win this. They have a shot to win this. Watch out. Don't count out the dogs. Don't count out my dogs. All right?
I'm not counting them out, but
do not count them out. And here's why. It has really been an up and down season for the dogs. All right? Sure, we have some bad losses. Sure, we've dropped some games, but we have some really impressive wins too. I mean, we got to win against Seton Hall. We got to win against St. John's. We got to win against Creighton, and we got to win against Villanova. So Butler, young dudes, Chuck Harris, Bryce Enzi, the transfer, Bo Hodges, they've shown that they can play with the big dogs. All right, watch out for Butler. They could take this thing.
If Butler, if Butler wins it, I'm just gonna cut a promo of what everything Drew just said, and it's gonna be like this dramatic music in the Butler on the background. It's like, we do have these big wins, and we can do it. All right, Tim.
We can't.
You heard it here first,
Do
folks.
not count us out.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I'm not counting them out, but here is my reason, the main reason why I think that, to me, the Butler Bulldogs are officially done. And the reason why is because Butler has had some great wins. You cannot deny that. But their wins have come at Hinkle Fieldhouse. The Big East tournament, neutral floor, not at Hinkle Fieldhouse. You see my point? And the other problem is they play
Hinkle Magic. I've seen it firsthand. Hinkle Magic is very
if they
real.
win that first round game for them, they come up against your favorite Creighton. It's not looking. All signs are pointing.
I'm not gonna lie. It's
Who does
not looking
Butler
great because
play
we're
in the
playing
first round? Who does Butler
we're playing
play?
Xavier in the
Butler
first
plays
round.
Xavier.
Oh.
Xavier beat us twice in the regular season. By the way, that'll be a revenge game. Third time's the charm. I hate Xavier.
Didn't Butler and Xavier get into like a big fight a couple of years ago too? There was like that big brawl.
I don't.
You guys don't remember that? There's like a big college, whatever. Who cares? All right, so Tim.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Anyway,
I'm just gonna say this. All right, we go third time's the charm. We beat Xavier. We shock Creighton. We go and shock the world against Nova. We win the Big East tournament. We're on our way to the dance. Don't count us out.
Okay.
You would have to beat UConn on your way to Villanova as well. So
that's also true.
But so here's my thing. For the sake of being different, if I had to go with my instincts, my pure opinions, I would go with Creighton. I think Creighton's hitting their stride at the right time here. All signs are pointing to me. Creighton is the most balanced team in the Big East. They've got 5 guys averaging 10 points or more. The interesting thing that I will point out, though, for further on in the future, for NCAA tournament purposes, those 5 guys receive a majority of the minutes. They play very heavily into their starting lineup. So how will that translate into tournament play when you have games kind of stacked on each other? That's always interesting when you see teams that don't go as deep as other teams. That's just something to point out there. But I actually think they're not a dark horse team, but I am actually going to count on Villanova to turn it around. And here is why. The only thing that I think that Villanova can do, first of all, they're an experienced team. They've got Jay Wright knows how to coach postseason teams. He knows how to get the best out of his guys.
Jay Wright.
You can't argue with the success.
Jay Wright is a fantastic coach.
Yeah, absolutely. So with Colin Gillespie out for the year,
in his head when he went to Hinkle. That's all.
Just a little bit, yeah. The bananas hit him a little different. But so with Colin Gillespie out for the year, that puts this major hole in their team. But I think if Villanova is going to pull this out in the Big East tournament, the main guy that I think they need to have pick up slack is Caleb Daniels. He has struggled mightily lately. He's shot 2 for 15 overall and 2 for 9 from 3 in their last 2 games. And if they're going to be able to do anything, he needs to be able to pick up that slack. He's got to knock some shots down early, get himself going. And he had some great games earlier on this year. He showed that he can step up, posting 4 games of 15 plus points. And that's what they're going to need from him down the stretch if they're going to right the ship and coast into the NCAA tournament with some momentum. And that's what they're going to need out of this tournament. And that is going to be, I think, their recipe for coming out of this Big East tournament on top.
And I think, Tim, you said this earlier too. They're not playing it. They're not playing in Villanova. If you guys look at their home stats,
they are a great home team, but they struggle everywhere else.
9-0 at home, guys. 4-4 away. So I mean, if there's ever gonna be an upset in the NCAA tournament this year, it wouldn't be surprised if it came from Villanova. Which is going to lead over to my pick, who I think is going to win the Big East tournament, and I'm going to sit here and tell you it's going to be Creighton. As you know, Tim said, and Drew said as well, you have 5 guys averaging over 10 points a game. You have a lethal sharpshooter, and there's a lot of upside into that. You have a great rotation of 5 guys playing a couple guys off the bench. I think what it's going to really, really lack though amongst them all is just going to be how good their bench I think can perform and how much their starters can handle the NCAA. Because the thing is you're going into a Big East tournament where you're playing top dogs like Villanova. And usually with like a Villanova team who's potentially deep, unlike Creighton has 5 amazing starters, but you look at more of their bench and their bench isn't bad. But if we're talking a true team that can make a big run, you got to have someone coming off that bench to spark it up, because you always need that guy off the bench that can come in there and spark it up. But I'm not going to say I'm not going to, remove any of that. I'm going to take the Creighton to win the Big East tournament this year. I will take them.
Hey, and before we wrap it off, I know I said that Butler was my dark horse. Don't get me wrong, they are. Watch out for St. John's, because I know we talked about them being an overachiever and how they hit their stride at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
I can see St. John's also being a dark horse to win this thing if all goes their way.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think they're a powerful pick for a dark horse team because of the fact of they've figured out who they are. And that's what you need when it comes heading into the postseason team. Find out what you're good at, do that, and let everything else fall into place. But if I had to go and pick a dark horse team, oddly enough, I'm tempted to go with Xavier. Despite the downfall they've been on, I think they have the tools to be able to turn around to shock some teams who they're going to bank on the fact that Xavier has struggled lately and they haven't been in the right direction. So if there's any team other than St. John's that I would think has the chance of pulling this out, do I think it's likely? Not particularly, because of the fact their last 5 games have kind of shown where they're at right now. But if there's any team that I could think have a magic turnaround and be able to pull something out of the hat to make a run in this thing, I think Xavier has the tools.
I don't know how much I like that. To be completely honest with you, because seeing how the way the Big East bracket matches up, say they do beat us a third time. Okay, fine. Xavier's better than us anyway. Nobody's expecting us to beat
It wouldn't
Xavier.
be too much of a surprise.
No, I would not be shocked. But I don't see them going and beating Creighton, because the winner of that game goes and plays Creighton. And we all have Creighton winning a lot of this.
Yeah.
And I can't see Xavier making it past them. Although, if they do somehow figure it out against Creighton,
all it takes is one off game for a team. So obviously, yeah, like we said, not very likely at all. All odds point towards Creighton coming in the right direction and pretty much stomping most of everybody in their way, at least onto the championship. But anything can happen in the tournament. So that's the whole premise of all this. So
yep.
Should be interesting to watch. I'm really excited to see how some of these games turn out.
Oh yeah.
I can't wait for it too. And I think that wraps it up for today's episode. If you guys want to wrap it up.
Yeah, I'll wrap it up.
Thank you guys for watching today. Today we discussed the Big East. Next discussion we're going to have is on the Big 12, which will be coming out soon, and this video will be out as well. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. And thank you for the first video with Tim on there, first NCAA video. That did amazing. So thank you guys for that. So if you guys want to see more of Tim again, let's keep going, and we're going to keep
tuning in. Keep tuning in, and I'll keep showing up.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for watching, and peace.